Hello everyone and welcome to Factorio Space Age. I'm Exterminator and thank you for joining me. I am overwhelmingly excited to be bringing you this overview and showcasing all of the new awesome stuff in the Space Age expansion. And we're going to get into that in just a minute. Just a couple quick things before we do. People may be wondering, if you haven't really been keeping up with the Friday Facts, or even if you have, if you're new or not, you may be thinking, is this worth me buying? Is this worth my money? Is there enough content here? And I can confidently say from my experience playing, and in my opinion, there absolutely is. I think there's quite possibly more content in Space Age, than there is in the vanilla game in 1.1 that we had previously. Like, if we think about it, the reason we are able to have hundreds or thousands of hours in the game, even after launching a rocket and beating the game, or even without doing that, is because we're constantly reaching for higher goals, thinking of new designs, how to build more efficiently, and so on. Now imagine that on 4 different planets and space platforms, as well as all of the things we get from new planets that you can then bring on Novice and do things with as well. And that is not even mentioning things like elevated rails and quality, which we'll get into here shortly. And I can tell you that space platforms, as well as several of the planets, have so many different ways that you can iterate on things and change designs and optimize them that just that alone could occupy you for tens or hundreds of hours, to be perfectly honest. Now, admittedly, making things all work together through like across 5 different planets, and we had a little bit of an interruption here. Excuse him for being so rude. But across all different planets, it's a lot to manage, and it could be overwhelming for players, understandably so. But that's why I'm here to help you and give you tips and give you hints and tutorials on these things that may be confusing and new to you, or just maybe not as intuitive. And I also have a Let's Play coming out here shortly that I'll be like kind of starting Space Age from the point of launching a rocket into space and how that goes from there, so you can follow along with that. But on that note, let's get into all the new awesome Space Age content. So there is a lot to cover, and we're going to kind of go generally in order of how you would start things, once you get past the base, like building a base and stuff. Like, once you get to a rocket silo, how are things going to change? Well, there's a few things that are going to change potentially prior to that. So one of those is elevated rails, and these are absolutely beautiful, and they are so good and so nice for junctions, for even just visuals for building over parts of your base. These can be placed over pretty much anything except very large structures like refineries, rocket silos, big power poles, stuff like that. But you can see here we have ramps. So we have ramps, they can very easily be rotated like this. You also have these supports, which you can place individually and then connect rails to. Alternatively, though, you can just take rails and start them on here and then just go, and it will automatically build platforms at like the max distance they can be built. And you can build, also they can be built on water as well without even landfilling. You can just place these on water as you wish, and you can just, you can do all kind of different things with them. They can only go up this one level, so you cannot build like more higher than this. But even with that, there are so many different things you can do with just one more level of height in your rails. Additionally, there are some other things like a new belt and a new inserter. So in 1.1, we had the green inserter, which was called the stack inserter. Now in 2.0 release, that's just going to be free to everyone, as well as Space Age, there is a bit of a change. So what was the stack inserter, this green one here, has been renamed to bulk inserter, and a new inserter called the stack inserter has been added. And the name change has come into play for a very good reason, because this one actually stacks. And with that, I'm going to go into the fact that we now have stacking items on belts. So items can now stack up to 4 on belts. So if we go ahead and power this on, I didn't do that yet just so you could actually see. So we have max stacking research. We have basically all research except the infinite ones researched here for this demo. And you can see these are stacking. So each one of these is basically a set of 4. You can see I just grabbed like 4 right there when I picked up a little bit of that, like the front one, and you can see I got 8 there. So these can move items. Basically, they can actually carry more items than the bulk inserters, the green ones. So with max hand size, these can carry 16 items, whereas the green ones over here can only do 11. But then stacking is in sets of 4, so it would take 4 swings, of course, for this to happen. You can see these coming out in stacks of 4. And this can be done on any belts, by the way. As long as you unlock the researcher stacking, this can be done on any of the belts. Speaking of belts, we have a new belt. We have the tungsten belt, which is unlocked on another planet, which we'll get to here soon. And this belt is significantly faster than the blue belt, and it also has a longer reach. So this reaches 11 tiles, and then the splitter just splits like normal. However, this has a speed of 60 items a second, which is incredibly fast. Even without stacking, that is 3,600 items a minute, just because, 60 times 60. But then once you factor in stacking, in stacks of 4, it just goes up. It's crazy how much stuff you can move on these things. So those are kind of some things you're going to notice before you even launch a rocket or go into space. Now, some of this does require going to another planet, so this you may not unlock initially, but you may just see them in your research tree and stuff like that. Thought I would mention those. Now, once you go to build a rocket, there's been quite a lot of changes, because in Space Age, you need a bunch of rockets, because this is how you transport materials up to your platforms and down, not down, but to your platforms, and then up to build platforms as well. So the cost has been significantly reduced on the rocket building. So basically, rocket parts take 10 times less ingredients than they did before. So really now, a rocket part only takes one of each of these things. You'll also notice that rocket control units are no longer in this. They have actually been completely removed from the game, but it now is processing unit, low density structure, and rocket fuel. And it only takes one. In addition to that, it actually only requires 50 rocket parts to craft a rocket instead of 100. So not only has it been reduced by a factor of 10, it's then also been cut in half again. So you only need 50 of these to build a rocket, and each one only takes one thing. So it's actually only 50 processing units, LDS, and rocket fuel, which seems incredibly low. But I will tell you, you need hundreds of these. You need thousands of rockets, because every time you want to send something to a platform to then transport those items to another planet, you have to send up a rocket. So you are sending huge amounts of rockets up to space. In addition to that, our rocket silos can also be circuit connected to read orbital requests, which is pretty sweet. And then rocket silos themselves also act as requester chests. So what happens is when you request an item on a platform, it's going to send that request down to the silo, so you can check this. And if there were requests in space connected to this, then it would be requesting these, and the bots would bring things directly to it. So you no longer would need to have requester chests with inserters going in. It is basically a requester chest. And another very important thing is that now all items have been given weights, and the rocket can only carry so much weight. So the rocket can only carry 1 ton, and everything has a weight. And so this is even kind of adds even more to the fact that you need to send a bunch of rockets. If we take a look here, you'll notice these tell you a rocket capacity. So belts, you can only send 100 belt at a time, which is kind of crazy. These you can only send 50 belt at a time, right? Elevator rails, you can only send 1 ramp. You can send 5 rail supports. You could send 25 assemblers. I looked at the wrong row there. Ores, it's a bit more, like 500. Science packs are quite a bit more that you can send up at once. I believe it's 1,000. But everything basically is assigned a weight. Now, it's not like you have to do the math as you just saw. It just tells you how much a rocket can carry. So, you can mix and match as well, right? If we wanted to put this in here, it will... oh, sorry, I can't do that because I had this checked. It will, this takes half. Okay, well then you could fill it with something else. So maybe I want to see, what if I put some of these in here? Okay, well it's almost full. So you can request, one other note with this before we move on. when you're requesting things from space, it will only ever send full stacks. And this is really important to know because this was kind of something that confused some folks for a while in like the land beta test, is that like if your rocket isn't launching when you think it should be, it may not have a full stack. So when you have it automatically request like pull from the platform requests, it will not launch until it has a full stack. So even if you're only requesting 5 belt, it will not launch until it has 50 belt. Right now, if you are not doing this and you're just manually sending stuff to a platform, you can put whatever you want in here, like any little amounts, but that's just something worth noting there. Additionally, connected with that, we have cargo landing pads, right? So this is how you get materials actually down to planets from your space platforms. This does not require a rocket. This will just basically you like trash the stuff from the platform, like put it in the trash slots essentially, and it will just send it down to this. And then you can pull out of this, however you want, and bots can grab from this as well. And then also you have cargo bays, which are essentially just expansions onto this. I put it separate just to show you more what it looks like, but really you would never really be having these separate. They would connect on, and you can see the graphic nicely changes as well to indicate that it is being connected. Now there is a max of these that you can do, but you can get pretty big with this, so it can hold a bunch of different items, right? So that's kind of how things start to change once you get into Space Age. Now, from there, we have space platforms. And space platforms are going to be your first step into actually doing things off of Novice, right? Space science has been changed, but it does have to do with space platforms. So this is kind of almost one and the same. So you can launch a rocket and like get space science from that directly, but I would really not recommend that because you get such a little amount. It is just really subpar to be doing that. How you're going to get the majority of your science packs is actually from space platforms. So you can actually make the space science in space from harvesting asteroids, which I'll show you here in just a minute. And once you do that, then you can send the space science back down and it would end up in your cargo landing pad here. And that's going to be how you get most of your space science. So before you can really do space science researches, you're going to need to build some sort of space platform to actually be able to get that. Although you technically could be getting it from rockets, it's so inefficient that it's just not something you really want to be doing unless you're just absolutely desperate right away and don't want to be building a platform or something. But it's definitely more efficient to be doing it on platforms. All right, so this is where we're actually making our space science. And you can see it's not too huge. It's not super small. We actually had a significantly smaller one previously, but we needed more space science, so we had to increase the size of it. But this is a good example of, how something may look. We're doing asteroid processing here, so these collectors are taking in asteroids, and this is a stationary platform above Novice. So this would just be built above Novice. You could technically have this be moving as well. It doesn't have to be above Novice, but you wouldn't have too much of a reason to do that, I wouldn't imagine, just because you don't really want your like traversing platform that you send between planets to be the one that makes space science. You could. We found so far probably not the best option, but I don't want to deter anyone from trying that because it could turn out well. And you're just making the space science here from things you collect from asteroids. So you get different materials from the different asteroids, and space science is quite simple. It takes iron, ice, and carbon, all of which you get from the asteroids, and this gives you 5 space science, right? And then you can productivity it, of course. And this is essentially infinite resources. The asteroids will continually generate, only in limited numbers at a time, but they kind of just never run out. And then you would be putting this in here. As you can see, we're grabbing it. It's also stacking. And it all goes in here, and then it would be requested down to Novice. So this is how you end up getting space science. Now, when it's time to actually go to other planets, we kind of have this one here, which is stationary, but you of course need one that moves. You can see this has no engines on it. So you then have to build one that actually can get you from planet to planet. And this is a good example of one we use that can actually get you from planet to planet, albeit a little slowly, and potentially precarious at first. This one's well built out. Initially, it was a little precarious, but you can see we have engines here. We have to make the fuel and coolant for it. But then this could actually be sent to the different planets if we wanted it to. And you can see this one here in particular is going to Gleba. So if we were to send this to Gleba, you can see what this looks like. And I never get tired of this engine animation. Oh my gosh, this just looks amazing. And, we have a distance you have to travel. And it's not a short distance. It's not an unbelievable distance, but it will take you a little while to get there. Now, there are some other things like quality that were introduced, which I will get into, but I want to hop into the planets because I'm sure that's what a lot of people are interested in as well. So there have been 4 new planets added to the game. Vulcanus, Fulgora, Gleba, and Aquilo. And all of these are very different from each other. Vulcanus is a lava, kind of fiery, volcanic planet, and the resource gathering there is pretty interesting. We'll get into that shortly. And then you have Fulgora, which is a very environmentally dangerous planet. It has huge lightning storms and very short day-night cycles, and you get electricity from lightning there, which is pretty interesting. It has a very interesting resource gathering aspect as well, where there's not really normal resource nodes. It's a bunch of stuff left over from a previous civilization that you can then gather, but you have to like recycle it and break it down and sort it out, which gets really interesting. And then you have Gleba, which is all jokes aside, Gleba is cool. It is definitely, I would say, the most difficult and potentially most frustrating planet. I'm not saying it's bad because you do get some very good things from it, and some people may be very much into the processes there. It has a mechanic called spoilage, which makes things kind of just like break down and become unusable after a certain amount of time if you don't use them in time. It's a lot of very interesting production chains, but the rewards there are very good. And then finally we have Aquilo, which is an icy planet, and you have to work a lot with heat mechanics and making sure things don't freeze. Quite a bit of liquid going on there, but again, the rewards are very fruitful from that planet. So why don't we just hop in and go to our first planet and take a look at what we get there and what some of the factory building might look like on that planet. So we're going to go ahead and visit Vulcanus first. All right, so we are now on Vulcanus, and these are the 2 main buildings you're going to unlock here. You can see the terrain is very, volcanic-like, and it has, all these rocks, all these little, like, craters and divots, tons of cliffs all over the place. There's just lava out here, all kind of little obstacles, but it's not that big of a deal. The cliffs are still nowhere near as bad. There's still like areas you can kind of build in. You can clear the cliffs, of course. And then you do unlock the foundry as well as the big mining drill here. And there's several new resources on Vulcanus as well. So there's sulfuric acid geysers, there's tungsten, and there's calcite. And then you get iron and copper from lava, which you then process in foundries. So you need these on Vulcanus, but you can then take them back. You do have to still make them here, but you can then take them back to Novice. And these are incredibly powerful buildings. So these can craft, all of these things. These can craft all the belts, including the subcomponent, the splitters and undergrounds. They can craft pipes. They can craft big mining drills and themselves. And then they can craft a bunch of intermediates like plate and gears and iron sticks, LDS, which is very important to note. And then the concrete, copper wire, and holmium, which is a resource you get from Fulgora, as well as tungsten plate, and then the science pack as well, which I am going to try to avoid showing you the science pack recipes just because I think that could be fun for you guys to discover yourselves. But I will try my best. I can't guarantee I'm not going to accidentally mouse over one. And then you have the big mining drill, which is very interesting because it actually has a built-in 50% depletion rate. So essentially it's going to deplete resources half as quickly, which is different than productivity, but it is really, really good. In addition to that, it has a faster mining speed of 2.5, and then it also has a much larger area there. You can see it's 13 by 13. The other very unique thing about this is that it actually outputs onto belts directly in stacks. So if you have belt stacking unlocked and you're using these big mining drills, they will actually output directly in stacks, whereas the normal mining drills would not. You would have to then like pick up the stuff with inserters and with stack inserters to get it stacked, but these will output directly in stacks. They also have 4 module slots. One other very important note about the Foundry as well is that it has a built-in 50% productivity bonus. So if you mouse over here, you can see productivity is 50%. This is without modules. It also has 4 module slots. So you can potentially get the productivity through the roof here because this will just inherently have the 50% prod on every single thing that you're crafting with this. And then of course can take liquid inputs because you actually make things in this with molten materials. So you can see here, you know, to make, well, you make the molten material in here. So you can put in iron ore and calcite or copper ore and calcite and make the molten version of that. And then you actually do your crafting or casting rather with this molten ore. So with iron molten ore, copper molten ore, etc. Same with all of these. So it's a multi-step process, but it is absolutely worth it because this can just crank out these things super quick with the productivity. It's really incredibly powerful. I can't emphasize enough how good these buildings are from the planets. Now we can take a look really quickly at what, you know, some stuff may look like here. This is a base that I built with Colonel Will and Flay and Stu, who we were all at the beta testing, and we built this after the fact, of course. But you can kind of see some of the processes, but you can see kind of what this, you know, may look like. And there are multiple silos because we have to be launching a lot of rockets. So that is kind of Vulcanus for you. I would say this is the most similar one to Novice, but it still has some pretty interesting mechanics in it. So here on Fulgora, there is a lot of lightning, and this is dangerous, but it's actually a crucial part of the gameplay here because this is how you generate electricity. So you have these lightning rods that you can build. There are also some just like basic ones that are kind of spawned on the map that you need to utilize to, you know, go hide by to not get hit. But you build these, and there's a normal and a kind of bigger version. This lightning collector is a bigger version of this. Essentially, you can see efficiency 20%, efficiency 40%. It has a longer range, so they have a range in which they can protect you from the lightning and collect electricity. And then as long as they have power, that is sent to accumulators. You can of course build other power here if you want, but initially this is likely how you're going to be actually getting most of your power. And then you unlock several buildings here as well. You unlock the electromagnetic plant as well as the recycler. The EM plant, I'm going to call it from now on, is basically the equivalent of the Foundry, but for Fulgora and for different items. So it can make things like power poles. It can make things like all the modules, which is insane. I cannot emphasize enough, folks, how powerful this is. We have never before in Factorio been able to have productivity on modules. But like the Foundry, the EM plant has a built-in 50% productivity. And the fact that you can make modules with this is incredible. Getting basically 1.5 modules, or a better way to say it, basically getting a free module for every 2 crafts is just absolutely crazy. And then it can also make all the circuits, except a later circuit. It can also make the science. This is like what you actually have to make the science pack in. And then some subcomponents here. And then it can make also the things, the weaponry here, which we will get into here in a little bit, which is interesting, getting productivity on things like a turret, but it can be done. And then you have the recycler, and the recycler is absolutely crucial on this planet, but also it has other uses because you can put anything in here, basically anything in here. So you can put stuff in here and it will recycle it and give you, basically break it down and give you 25% back, right? So there are a couple exceptions to this. So smelted items, so like plates, you can't like put it in and get, like, it doesn't work to like get the ore back, or chemical items as well. But it returns 25% of the ingredients on average. Also, fluids are excluded, so like you don't get fluid back if you put something in that required fluid. But you otherwise can basically put whatever in here, and it will give you 25% of the ingredients to it back, right? So like if you put circuits in here, get like 25% of the iron and copper it took, etc. Or you can put red circuits and get like plastic green circuits at 25% rate. And you can put model slots in here, and there is also some stuff to help us later on, which we'll get into, but this will be used extensively here, but then also it will be used, you can just use it wherever you want, essentially. Now, if we come over here, but there's several resources here. Well, there's two, basically. There are like oil sands, which is kind of what I just walked across, and you can use an offshore pump to actually get heavy oil from this. You can see that we're doing over here. And then there's also scrap. So over here is where we're harvesting scrap. Now, scrap is basically the only mineable resource on this planet. And you'll also notice that elevator rails play a very heavy part here. But you mine the scrap, and it's very interesting because it gives you a bunch of different stuff back. So, but the scrap gives you all of this different stuff. So the scrap gives you basically like this adds up to essentially like 100%. So like this is a breakdown of like the amount of the total that it would give you, if that makes sense. So you get like a bit of concrete, batteries, ice, stone, holmium, iron gears, copper cables, steel, solid fuel, LDS, blue and red circuits, every single time you process one of these. And then you can either mine it by hand, mine it by big mining drills. There's like abandoned structures you can mine that have it, which is how you'll get a lot of it initially. And you do need quite a lot of this. So that's essentially Fulgora for you in a nutshell. There's obviously more to it, but I don't want to just give every single thing like away. I mean, this pretty much is Fulgora, but it definitely gets pretty interesting. There's a lot of challenges and puzzles here in terms of separating out the scrap and, you know, figuring out a good recycling system and, you know, how to, like, what you want to recycle, what you don't, how much of each thing. It becomes very interesting. This is actually, I think, potentially my favorite planet, if not my second favorite planet. I really enjoy doing stuff here. It gets quite interesting. And then let's move on to Gleba. Okay, so here on Gleba, it is basically a like natural vegetation, organic planet, agricultural planet as well. You can see very, very much like biodiverse here, just so many different like trees and stuff. You get all kind of stuff, spoilage and some other resources from it. And then there are enemies here. So there are kind of bug-like, they're called pentapods. They're spider-ish, but only 5 legs. And then there's bigger versions, which are stompers, do extreme damage, by the way. Definitely watch out for those guys. But you do have to deal with the enemies, and you also have to collect some things from them. You have to collect their eggs to be able to do some of the recipes here. And you can see down here the base we have going. I'll show you that in just a second. But the buildings you unlock are the biochamber, and it essentially acts as a bit of a chemical plant. It can only do a couple chemical plant things, but it does have built-in productivity. So just like the other two buildings, you know, you can do cracking with a built-in productivity. You can also do rocket fuel. And then you have all of the recipes on Gleba. I don't want to look at every single one of these. Again, otherwise we would be here for hours, and it would spoil everything for you. But I guess you can kind of just take a look there and get a general idea. It can also make itself. So all these special buildings can like make, you know, make themselves basically. And then potentially one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful building you unlock in the game in Space Age is this, which is a biolab. And the biolab, there was an additional name there because this is an upgraded lab. And labs have like supporters' names on them. But this is just insanely powerful. And the reason for this is not only does it have 4 model slots, but also it is similar to the big mining drill in the fact that it has 50% depletion rate on packs, which again is actually so much better than productivity, right? Because if you were putting in a pack and you had 50% productivity, you would be getting 1.5 like research cycles out of a pack. Whereas with this, when it's 50% depletion, you're actually getting 2 research cycles out of a pack, right? Because if you put one in, it's only going to consume half of it to do a research cycle, and then it's going to consume the second half of it to do another research cycle. And then this can be combined with productivity as well as a research as well that helps us even further, which we'll get into. And this is just absolutely insanely powerful. And I think it makes the pain of Gleba worth it. And then also you get the agriculture tower, which really only has a use on Gleba. This is how you automatically like replant and harvest like fruits and different growables you can do here. And then we are out of power, so that is definitely one struggle you have on Gleba. This is an idea of kind of what you have to do. Well, not have to do. This is one way you can do things. And it's pretty interesting because Gleba has spoilage, which basically means that for a lot of things you process, you get spoilage. Or, well, you get nutrients as a byproduct, but then the things themselves, you can see these little white bars here. This is all of its like half-life, basically, where most things on this planet, from this planet, spoil eventually. They have like a countdown of how long basically they will last until they turn into spoilage, which you then can't really, you can do some stuff with it, but it's obviously not useful for its original purpose. And this even accounts for science back. So that is Gleba for you. It is a very interesting planet in the aspect of it, you know, it's definitely more, I would say, complex mechanics than you may be used to on Novice. You can see over here some of the kind of harvesting we have going on. Luckily, this can be automated, assuming we had power. But it does require quite a lot of, you know, puzzling out, rebuilding some things, thinking on how you want to deal with all of your spoilage and byproducts, and like outputting multiple different things from a recipe. There's a lot of like loops you have to go through here too, where like you have to send stuff back through loops to make sure it gets used properly, which some people may be really into, and some people may not. And with that, let's go to the final planet, which is Aquilo. Okay, so here on Aquilo, it's frozen, and you have to utilize heat pipes to actually build on it, which is quite interesting. It sounds annoying, and it is a little bit, but it is not as annoying as you may think. It wasn't actually that frustrating doing this once you get set up. It is quite slow getting started, because one of the things about this planet is, as you might imagine, it is the farthest away from the sun and has basically 1% solar efficiency. So a solar panel that may be like 60 kilowatts output on Novice is only 0.6 here. So almost useless. And I mean, you obviously need power, so you could either bring solar panels and just start horribly slow, or you would probably want to be bringing some other form of power here, maybe nuclear, because you also have the added advantage of nuclear reactors generating heat, which you put through these heat pipes. You can also generate heat with heat towers, and those are actually unlocked on Gleba. But you can see, so these generate heat, but they also have another awesome feature where you can burn a bunch of stuff. So you can burn, you can see here, you can burn mostly stuff from Gleba. You need to burn a lot of stuff from Gleba. You need to burn the enemies, you need to burn a lot of the ingredients. You don't need to, but it will help you with having stuff back up and have bottlenecks. So this is kind of like a multi-purpose thing. Is it generates heat is its like primary purpose, but then it also obviously needs fuel, and just happens to be able to take a bunch of stuff from Gleba, which is very useful. And you do unlock it again on Gleba, so you should have it before you come here. And the buildings you unlock from this are also crazy powerful. So you have a cryogenic plant, which essentially fills in the gaps for chemical plant recipes that the biochamber misses. So you can see it has sulfuric acid, plastic, basically everything you can normally do in a chemical plant. And then also can do the weapon from here, which we'll get into, and then also fusion reactors and fusion generators, as well as captive biter spawners, which is a mechanic, again, we will get into, and then cryogenic plant itself. And fusion power is unlocked here, and it's basically a very upgraded version of nuclear power. These are crazy, crazy powerful. So the fusion reactor has a max output of 100 megawatts. The nuclear reactor only has 40, I believe. And then the fusion generator can generate 50 megawatts, whereas a steam turbine is only like, I want to say like 5.6. And If you're wondering, by the way, why I'm not like looking at things in the tech tree or my inventory or opening the map, it's because there are spoiler things there that would be incredibly difficult even with video editing. So this intakes plasma or fusion power cells and outputs plasma, and then it also takes in this. I'm gonna completely butcher the name. This stuff. So fluoroketone. I definitely ruined this name. I apologize for anyone who actually knows how to pronounce it. But it takes this stuff, and then this is like a cooled version. You also have a heated version, which is what this outputs. Plasma goes into this in these connectors, but you have to work it in a way where you can actually have these connectors like make their connections, but then also output the heated fluoroketone or whatever it may be called, and then be able to connect to each other in such properly, because you can see they can actually connect to each other, but you have to leave all the connections open. So the puzzling with this is actually really interesting. It's pretty fun to work out here. And you can see an example down here of kind of how we've done this. It's a lot of like staggering. Now on Aquilo, it's even more difficult because you have to run heat pipes through here. But if you bring this to Novice or somewhere else, you don't have to worry about the heat pipes. But you can see here, yeah, so these are taking in this stuff, and then you put in the fusion cells and the plasma goes through here. Now the other interesting thing here is plasma cannot be sent through pipes, so this has to be a direct connection. All your plasma connections have to be direct because it's way too hot to go through pipes, which is definitely worth noting there. Now, one other thing with the cryogenic plant is this does not have 50% productivity because there's a lot of looping recipes here that use this building. So it would pretty much break it, the whole process. But what it does have is a module slot. So you can just cram modules in here and still get this to an absolutely crazy potential productivity or speed. So this is, you know, very, very powerful. Now the resources you're going to find on Aquilo, there's actually quite a few of them here as well. So there's basically ammonia you can pump from the ocean. All these oceans are not water oceans, they are basically ammonia oceans. And when you pump it out, you get ammonia and then you get ice, which you need to, well, build like ice platform to expand this, but then you also need to build, you know, other things. You use the ice for other things. You could break it down into water for nuclear power or something if you want. There's also lithium brine and fluorine gas and crude oil. So if we take a look, we had some of that over here. Up here, you can see this is fluorine vents. You could put pump jacks on this. And then, of course, oil. And then you also have the lithium brine as well. Okay, so we're in the editor here, but this is basically what the lithium brine is. You pump it out with the pump jacks as well. But you know, so a lot of it is pump jacks, a lot of liquid type of stuff going on here on Aquilo, and interestingly, none of it's water. So definitely a lot of stuff going on. So that is all the planets. Now let's hop back to Novice and go over a last few things here. I know this has already been super long, but there's just so much to go over in this expansion. So we're gonna hop back to Novice. Alrighty, so back here on Novice, the other things, and I will show you, I'm going to turn these on. I turn them off because they're quite loud, but you can see these output in stacks, right? And then the productivity is from mining productivity because I researched everything, but they do have the 50% depletion rate as well. And then you can see another fusion setup I made down here, and you can kind of get a better idea because it's so close together that you take in this fluoroketone stuff and it's hot, and then you have to cool it down and it can be sent back through. So you can make a nice little loop here with it. And if we take our cheaty combinator, we can crank up the power consumption on this, and you can see all these light up and start generating power. So this little setup here can make 500 megawatts of power, and this is definitely not even the most efficient. I threw this together pretty quickly for the demo, but you can definitely get a lot more efficient than this and better designs, less pipe spaghetti. But just to give you an idea, right? So we're going to go ahead and lower that down there. Another huge thing in the expansion is quality. And quality has been pretty heavily debated. It's pretty well known as the reason I didn't go over it like right at the beginning because I think planets are like the main thing people may be interested in. Not everyone. Quality is fantastic though. Don't get me wrong. I didn't wait to the end to do it because I don't like it. I actually love quality. Quality is one of my favorite aspects of Space Age, and uh, it's really interesting. So you have your base buildings here, but then with quality, you can get upgraded versions of everything in multiple different levels. And the way you get this is by putting special modules, quality modules, these here, into the buildings that make this stuff. So if you have, say, an assembling machine that's making inserters, if you insert quality models into it, you then get a chance at a higher quality item. You can see there quality plus 2%, or quality plus 2.5% at a quality model 3. And it does slow down the machine though, so that's worth noting. But you can put these in and then you will just get, an X% chance basically of getting a higher quality thing. And if we go ahead and give that a try here really quick and stick in some quality modules, you can see that you then have a percent chance. So quality is 5.5% chance. And it kind of is a tiered thing where like you have X% chance to get like a lower level quality and then even less of a percent chance to get the next level and then next level and so on and so forth. So it kind of like tiers down like that, but you can get, a percent chance. And then the quality modules can have quality. So later on, you can have higher quality modules to have an even higher percent chance to get better stuff. And you can see here, so here's the quality. So we have a uncommon, we have rare, we have epic, and we have legendary. And I know the names may be controversial, but I think we'll get used to them. And this applies for basically every item in the game. And the majority of the items do get a boost from this, quite a large boost. Some things do not. So like belts do not get faster, they just get more health, I believe. Walls just get more health, which I shouldn't say just. More health is actually a good thing for walls. But things like trains get more health and stuff like that. But for the most part, things get a boost. So you can notice here, the base inserter has a swing speed of 864. The uncommon one has 1123. The rare one has 1382. This one has 1642. And then this one has 2160 swing speed. It does not enhance the carry amount of inserters, but it massively enhances the speed of them. It's really quite crazy how fast you can actually transfer items. Look how fast this moves. It looks like we're on 10 times speed, but this is just how fast this inserter moves. And then things like furnaces have a faster craft speed. So this is base 1, 1.3, 1.6, 1.9, and 2.5. And then, these go up as well. Furnaces, so base 2, 2.6, 3.2, 3.8, and 5 is a basis with no models, no beacons. And yes, there's quality beacons and quality modules. And this can just get absolutely crazy. And if we take a look at these buildings from other planets, so this is their base versions, which are already very powerful. If you get legendary versions of this, you can see the crafting speed of a foundry just normally is 4. This becomes 10. No modules, no beacons. This is a 10 craft speed. This is 2, this is 5, this is 2, this is 5, this is 7 research speed. That's because we have the lab researches done again because I unlocked everything. But this is 17.5. This is 2, and this is 5. I didn't really bother doing this. Here's your heat tower. And yes, so quality is incredibly powerful. Now, it is very hard to get these higher qualities. It's not too hard, honestly, to get these uncommons and even rares. But trying to get multiple things or large quantities of things in legendary takes an incredibly long time and requires massive processing. And this is part of why I love it, because not only does it allow you to make your factory faster without having to build wide, right, without having to build more things, you can just make the things you have better. I love that aspect, but also love the fact that this gives you something else to do. This could keep you in your base occupied for so long. And I just like the fact that it won't necessarily be about you don't necessarily have to just have your only focus be like X science packs per minute or something. While that may be generally a benchmark still for mega bases, you can spend so much time just trying to upgrade your quality of your base because it requires so many materials to do so. These things are so expensive to make these higher qualities because you have to, just keep upgrading and upgrading and upgrading. And it's just a really interesting process, and I really enjoy it personally. I think hopefully most people enjoy it. You can turn it off. That is something to note. This is something where you can turn off this option. It basically acts as like a mod. You can just play Space Age with no quality enabled if you want to do that. Same with elevator rails. I don't know why you would want to do that with elevator rails. I understand if some people want to do that with quality, but that is an option. So I wouldn't worry too much. You can just turn it off if you want, or if you want to leave it on, maybe you end up wanting it. You still don't have to build with it. You can still never use it, and everything will be fine. One last note with quality, as you probably would think already, but I want to clarify, if you have something above like non-quality, so if you have an uncommon and you put in quality ingredients, you're guaranteed the quality, at least the quality of the ingredients you put in. So for example, if we have an assembling machine again here, and we want to make inserters, if we put in uncommon levels of all of these ingredients, you are guaranteed an uncommon bulk inserter of that level. But if you also put in quality modules, you can get a chance at higher. So basically, you can step it up, right? You can kind of take slow steps up. So if you put quality modules in here, the quality percent chance you get is basically going to be like on top of the uncommon. So you will guarantee an uncommon output, but then the quality percent is rolled, and you could get, like, it's a higher percent chance to get rare or epic or legendary because you're not trying to roll for the uncommon, right? Because it just comes out that way because that's the level of the ingredients you put in. And then, again, the same would apply to all these qualities, right? Now, lastly, I did not go over these being unlocked on each individual planet, which I probably should have, but I think they're a little more niche since they're combat things. We do get the rocket turret, which is huge range, has a minimum range as well, and this, well, can shoot rockets. Pretty self-explanatory. But you can put in rockets and shoot them out, and it's really good, and it is definitely required for space platforms. You very much will need this for space platforms, but you can use it against enemies as well. And then you also get the Tesla turret, which, as you may have guessed, comes from Fulgora. And this is really quite powerful. If we pull up these turrets, I had problems with the natives, which I left here for demo purposes. If we aggro some of these guys and bring them over here, this Tesla turret just rips them apart. We do have a lot of upgrades, of course, because I unlocked all tech, but this is still quite good. And there is a handheld version of this as well. And then lastly, we have this railgun, which you unlock on Aquilo, and it is an absolute beast. It has a pretty decent range in a cone, but check out the damage. But the damage starts at 10k, and then you can upgrade this. So it starts at 10,000. My upgrades are giving it an additional 4,000 physical damage. So each one of these hits is 14,000 in my case, but it's base 10,000, and it shoots pretty quick, faster than you may think, like not crazy quick, but it does shoot at a decent speed here. So if we pick this up, and there is a handheld version, if you were wondering, if we pick that up and place this in range, probably gonna aggro these guys. And the sound too. And boom. Both these bases done with. And it hits in a line too, so it actually pierces. So if there were things behind this, it would actually pierce through and hit the things behind it. It can shoot biters. I would not recommend that. And I can show you. It's not great. And you can see I died. So that was a fun experiment. We we died there because it hit us. It does do friendly damage, so that is worth noting. Whereas, like gun turrets will not shoot you. This will. But yeah, while we were here, I think one of the last things to go over is the biter capturing from Gleba. So you get this ability from Gleba where you can actually capture biter spawners, you shoot a special like rocket capsule at the spawner and it will capture it. And then you can use that to basically breed biters and get biter eggs, which are then used for many different things. I don't want to give it all away, but that is a very interesting mechanic, and it is a little tricky doing it because you have to be able to kill all the biters, but you don't want to kill the spawners, and then you need to shoot the thing at it to obviously take over the spawner and capture it. And you do have to feed them like a special nutrients from Gleba, and to keep them going. Otherwise, it will basically kind of go rogue and turn back into a normal spawner. And also at the beginning, when we had the big biter or the behemoth biter spawn on us, it's because these biter eggs will actually spoil in your inventory and or anywhere really, chest or whatever on belts. So that's something worth keeping in mind. There are also multiple new researches or added for productivity of certain items. So there is steel productivity research, plastic productivity, blue circuit, LDS, rocket fuel, rocket parts, scrap recycling, asteroid productivity, and one of the biggest is lab productivity. And these researches allow you to basically give the production of these items inherent productivity. So when you research, say plastic productivity for the first time, it's going to give you like a 10% productivity on all your plastic production from then on out without modules. Same with all of these other items. And then lab productivity, same thing. When you get a research of it, it's going to increase your lab productivity just inherently by the percentage, that research gives. And you can also add modules to it. And this is just incredibly powerful. And every single one of these researches is infinite. Now, they do require packs from other planets, so this is worth keeping in mind. But once you get all the packs, all the planets done and situated, you can just start cranking out these researches, and this stacks on top of everything else, all of the crazy buildings and their built-in productivity, the new modules, quality, so you can just build to massive scales for cheaper with stuff like this. Maybe a few things I miss. This, I think, is the crux, the majority, and the bulk of what Space Age has to offer. There's a lot. There is so much. Between the quality alone is a lot. Space platforms, 4 different planets, and all the buildings and different mechanics you get on the planets, the different researches. But yeah, that is going to do it for this one. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you stuck it out till the end here, well done and thank you so much. And if you found this helpful and informative and you're excited for Space Age, definitely drop a like on the video. And if you're new and aren't already subscribed, definitely do so to keep up with future content, which will include a brand new Let's Play I do with Space Age, more overview videos of specific things, tutorials on many different aspects, and so much more from there. Until the next one, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.